My child. Pause for a moment, because what you are about to hear was never supposed to reach you this way. Last night seemed like an ordinary night to everyone watching from the outside. The lights were dim, conversations drifted through the room, and people believed they understood everything that was happening. But they didn't. Hidden beneath the laughter, beneath the casual words, beneath the moments nobody paid attention to, something unexpected was unfolding. And at the center of it all, was you. Don't skip this moment. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your person tried to act normal last night. They smiled when others were looking. They answered questions. They nodded during conversations. Yet deep inside, their thoughts kept returning to the same place. No matter who was speaking, no matter what distractions appeared around them, your name kept finding a way back into their mind. It was as if an invisible thread kept pulling their attention toward a memory they could not escape. And the strange part? They weren't even trying to think about you. Yet every road led back to the same destination. As the night continued, the walls they had carefully built around their emotions began to weaken. The feelings they had hidden, the thoughts they had refused to admit, the questions they had pushed aside for so long started rising to the surface. Nobody around them noticed at first. Everyone assumed they were simply enjoying the evening. Everyone believed nothing important was happening. But something important was happening. Something that would change the direction of every conversation that followed. Then came a moment nobody expected. A silence appeared between several conversations. It lasted only a few seconds. Most people ignored it. Most people forgot it happened. But your person's brother didn't. He had been watching quietly for much longer than anyone realized. He had noticed every time your person became distracted. He had noticed every time your name nearly slipped into a sentence. He had noticed the way their expression changed whenever certain topics appeared. While everyone else remained unaware, he had already connected the pieces together. And then he said something. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just one sentence. One sentence that instantly changed the energy in the room. The moment those words left his mouth, your person's eyes shifted. Their expression changed. Their heart recognized a truth they had been avoiding. Suddenly, the conversation was no longer casual. Suddenly, everyone felt that something meaningful had just been revealed. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The brother looked directly at your person and spoke with complete certainty. There was no hesitation in his voice. No confusion. No guessing. He spoke as someone who had been observing quietly for a very long time. And what he said surprised everyone. He said, "You can pretend all you want, but every important decision you make somehow leads back to the same person." The room became still. Your person laughed at first. Not because it was funny. Because the truth had arrived unexpectedly. Because the sentence landed closer to their heart than they wanted anyone to know. Because for the first time, someone had spoken aloud what they had been silently carrying for months. And suddenly, memories began flooding their mind. Moments they thought they had forgotten. Conversations they replayed late at night. Small details connected to you that never truly disappeared. The brother continued watching. He didn't need to say much more. Sometimes one sentence is enough. Sometimes one sentence reveals what 1,000 conversations could never uncover. And in that moment, your person realized something powerful. No matter how far they tried to move away from certain feelings, those feelings remained. No matter how much time passed, the connection they felt never fully disappeared. It simply waited beneath the surface, growing stronger while nobody was paying attention. But what happened next is the part nobody saw coming. Instead of changing the subject, instead of dismissing the comment, your person became unusually quiet. That silence spoke louder than words. Because silence often appears when the heart recognizes a truth before the mind is ready to admit it. Their brother noticed immediately. Others noticed too. The room felt different. The atmosphere shifted. A realization was unfolding in real time. And although nobody fully understood it yet, they could all feel it. Your person was no longer running from the conversation. For the first time, they were sitting face to face with feelings they could no longer ignore. Stay till the end. Because what happened after that silence is even more surprising. The brother smiled slightly and shook his head. Then he said another sentence. A sentence nobody expected. A sentence that carried more weight than anyone realized. He said, "The way you talk about them when they're not around tells the whole story." The room froze again. Because suddenly everyone understood. This wasn't about one moment. This wasn't about one memory. This wasn't about a passing thought. This was about something much deeper. Something that had been growing quietly for a very long time. And your person knew it. They couldn't deny it anymore. The truth had finally stepped into the light. What nobody else understood was that this conversation was only the beginning. Because after those words were spoken, a chain of realizations began unfolding inside your person's heart. Questions became answers. Doubts became clarity. Confusion became understanding. And the biggest realization of all was still waiting just ahead. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you. Because what your person understood before the night ended would leave an impact far greater than anyone in that room could imagine. And that revelation is only beginning. A strange feeling settled over the room after those words were spoken, and what happened next became impossible to ignore. Your person tried to look away, tried to focus on something else, tried to convince everyone that the conversation had moved on. But the truth has a way of returning when it has finally been seen. The more they attempted to hide their reaction, the more obvious it became that their brother had touched something real. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. For several moments nobody spoke. It was almost as if the entire room was waiting for your person to respond. They smiled, but it was not the same smile from earlier. There was something different behind it now. Something thoughtful. Something reflective. Something that seemed to be looking backward through time. Their brother noticed immediately. He could see memories moving behind your person's eyes. Memories connected to you. Memories they thought nobody knew existed. Then, without warning, their brother leaned forward and said something even more surprising. He said, "You know what's funny? Every time someone asks you what really matters to you, you somehow end up talking about them." The moment those words landed, your person's expression completely changed. It was as though another hidden truth had just been uncovered. Suddenly they weren't defending themselves anymore. Suddenly they weren't laughing. Suddenly they were remembering. They remembered conversations that lasted longer than expected. They remembered moments when your name brought an unexpected smile. They remembered times when they wanted to reach out but didn't. They remembered opportunities they let pass because they weren't sure what would happen next. And as those memories returned one after another, a realization began growing stronger inside them. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The people around them could feel it too. Nobody understood the full story, but everyone sensed that something important was unfolding. The atmosphere had changed completely. What started as an ordinary night had become a night of reflection, honesty, and unexpected revelations. Even your person's brother seemed surprised by how deeply his words were affecting them. Then came the moment nobody saw coming. Your person quietly asked a question. Not to the room. Not to anyone else. To themselves. A question they had been avoiding for a very long time. What if I've been ignoring something important? That single thought changed everything. Because once a person begins asking the right question, the answers start appearing everywhere. Your person started connecting pieces they had never connected before. Small moments suddenly looked bigger. Tiny details suddenly seemed meaningful. Things they once dismissed now appeared impossible to ignore. It felt like standing in front of a picture that had always been blurry and finally seeing it clearly for the first time. Their brother noticed the silence again. Then he smiled. Not because he knew everything. But because he knew enough. Enough to understand that your person was finally facing emotions they had been running from. Enough to understand that the conversation was no longer about the past. It was becoming about the future. And that future looked very different than it had only a few hours earlier. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because while everyone else thought the conversation was ending, your person was only beginning to understand what their heart had been trying to tell them all along. And before the night was over, one final realization would arrive. A realization so unexpected, so personal, and so impossible to ignore that it would stay with them long after everyone else had gone home. The most important part of the story is still ahead. What nobody realized was that the most powerful moment of the entire night had not happened yet. The room had become quieter, the conversations around them had faded into the background, and your person found themselves thinking about something they had not allowed themselves to think about in a very long time. It was not a memory. It was not a question. It was a realization. And realizations are powerful because once they arrive, they refuse to leave. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your person's brother watched carefully as the silence continued. Then he said something that seemed simple at first, but carried far more meaning than anyone understood in that moment. He said, "You know, I have never seen you talk about anyone the way you talk about them." The second those words were spoken, something shifted inside your person. Not because they had never heard something similar before, but because this time it came from someone who had been observing quietly from the outside. Someone with no reason to exaggerate. Someone who was simply speaking the truth as he saw it. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. Nobody changed the subject. The atmosphere felt different now, almost as if the entire evening had been leading to this exact conversation. Your person stared into the distance, replaying countless moments connected to you. Moments they once thought were ordinary now felt significant. Moments they once overlooked suddenly seemed impossible to ignore. Every memory carried a message. Every memory pointed toward the same conclusion. Then something surprising happened. Instead of denying what had been said, your person nodded. Only slightly. Almost nobody noticed. But their brother noticed. And that small gesture spoke louder than any speech ever could. Because that nod carried acceptance. That nod carried honesty. That nod carried the weight of feelings that had been hidden for much longer than anyone realized. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The brother smiled and leaned back. He understood immediately what that nod meant. It meant your person was no longer fighting the truth. It meant they were finally allowing themselves to see things clearly. And once clarity arrives, everything begins to change. As the night continued, the conversation moved to other topics, but something interesting happened. Even when everyone else was discussing completely different things, your person's attention kept drifting back to what had already been said. Those words echoed repeatedly in their mind. They could not escape them. They could not ignore them. Every sentence their brother had spoken felt more meaningful with every passing minute. Then came a moment that nobody else noticed. Your person quietly stepped away from the group for a few minutes. Not because they wanted to leave. Not because they were upset. Because they needed to think. Because for the first time in a long time, they were looking at their feelings honestly. And during those quiet moments, a powerful realization appeared. What if the connection they felt was never temporary? What if the reason they could never completely move on was because part of their heart never truly wanted to? What if every path they explored eventually led back to the same person for a reason? Those questions changed everything. Because suddenly the story was no longer about memories. It was about possibilities. It was about what could happen next. It was about what the future might hold. And the more your person thought about it, the more obvious the answer became. The feelings had never disappeared. They had only been waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for honesty. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for someone to say the one sentence that would force everything into the open. That sentence came from their brother. And now nothing felt the same. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because before this night ended, your person would reach a conclusion they never expected to reach. A conclusion that would completely change how they looked at you, how they looked at themselves, and how they looked at the future. And when that realization finally arrived, even they would be shocked by how obvious it had been all along. The biggest revelation of the entire story is still coming. Long after most people stopped paying attention to the conversation, your person was still thinking about it. That is what made this night different. Usually, moments come and go. Usually, people move on. Usually, words fade into the background. But not these words. Not this conversation. Not this realization. It followed your person everywhere for the rest of the night. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As the gathering slowly began to wind down, people started leaving one by one. Laughter became quieter. Conversations became shorter. The room that had once been full of noise suddenly felt calm. Yet inside your person's mind, everything was becoming louder. Every sentence their brother had spoken continued echoing. Every memory connected to you continued resurfacing. Every unanswered question demanded attention. Then something happened that nobody expected. As your person prepared to leave, their brother stopped them for one final conversation. Nothing dramatic. Nothing planned. Just one last quiet moment between two people who understood each other better than most. Their brother looked directly at them and said, "You know what I've noticed? Every time life starts moving forward for you, somehow your thoughts return to the same person." The words landed instantly. There was no laughter this time. No attempt to change the subject. No attempt to avoid the truth. Because deep down, your person already knew. The brother continued. He said, "Maybe you're not being reminded of them because you can't let go. Maybe you're being reminded because you're not supposed to." The moment those words were spoken, everything became silent. Not outside. Inside. Inside your person's heart. Because suddenly they weren't looking at the connection as a memory anymore. They were looking at it as something unfinished. Something meaningful. Something that still carried importance. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your person stood there thinking about every unexpected coincidence, every moment that brought your name back into their life, every feeling they thought would disappear but never did. The more they reflected, the harder it became to dismiss everything as chance. Then came the biggest realization yet. Your person began to understand that throughout all the distractions, all the changes, all the time that had passed, one thing remained surprisingly consistent. You. Not because someone forced those thoughts. Not because someone reminded them. But because the connection itself never truly disappeared. And once that realization arrived, it changed the way they viewed everything. Suddenly the past looked different. Suddenly certain conversations made sense. Suddenly certain emotions became easier to understand. The pieces were finally connecting. The story was finally becoming clear. Their brother could see it happening. Without saying another word, he smiled. Because he knew the realization had finally arrived. And once a realization reaches the heart, it becomes impossible to ignore. Your person left that conversation carrying something they did not have earlier that night. Clarity. Real clarity. The kind that changes decisions. The kind that changes perspective. The kind that changes the future. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because later that night, when everything became quiet and there was nobody left around, your person found themselves replaying one specific sentence over and over again. Not the first sentence. Not the second sentence. The final one. Maybe you're being reminded because you're not supposed to forget. Those words stayed with them. Those words followed them. Those words opened a door they thought had already been closed. And what they realized next would become the most important discovery of the entire night. Because for the first time, they stopped asking why they kept thinking about you. And started asking what it meant. The answer to that question is closer than they ever imagined. And what happens next changes everything. Hours had passed, yet the night refused to end inside your person's mind. The conversations were over. The room was empty. The noise had disappeared. But the words spoken by their brother were still alive, repeating themselves with surprising clarity. Some nights are forgotten by morning. This was not one of those nights. This was the kind of night that changes the way someone sees everything. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your person sat alone, replaying every detail. They remembered the exact moment their brother looked at them. They remembered the certainty in his voice. Most importantly, they remembered how those words felt. Because deep down, they knew something unusual had happened. A truth they had been avoiding for so long had finally found its way into the open. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of focusing on the past, your person started thinking about the future. For the first time, they stopped asking themselves why the connection existed. They started asking where it could lead. That single shift changed everything. Because questions about the past often create confusion. Questions about the future create possibilities. And suddenly, your person found themselves imagining things they had not allowed themselves to imagine before. What if certain paths were not closed? What if certain feelings were not finished? What if the story was still being written? The more they thought about it, the stronger the realization became. This was not about coincidence. This was not about random memories. This was not about a passing thought that would disappear tomorrow. It was something much deeper. Something that had survived distance. Something that had survived time. Something that had survived every attempt to ignore it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As the night grew later, another memory suddenly returned to them. A small moment. A moment most people would consider insignificant. Yet somehow it stayed with them. And when that memory appeared, they understood something shocking. The moments connected to you were never ordinary in their heart. They had simply pretended they were. That realization hit harder than anything their brother had said. Because it came directly from within. Nobody suggested it. Nobody planted the idea. Nobody guided them toward it. The truth arrived on its own. And once it arrived, it became impossible to ignore. Your person realized that every time they thought they had moved on completely, something always brought them back to the same place. The same memories. The same emotions. The same connection. The same person. You. And that realization created a silence unlike any other. Not a silence of confusion. A silence of understanding. A silence that appears when the heart finally accepts what it has known all along. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because while your person was reflecting on everything that had happened, another realization quietly emerged. Their brother had not spoken randomly. Their brother had noticed things for a long time. The pauses. The smiles. The way your name changed the energy of a conversation. The way certain memories stayed alive when other memories disappeared. The brother had seen all of it. And that meant something important. It meant the connection was visible. Not only to your person. To others too. That thought surprised them more than anything. Because suddenly they understood they had not been hiding their feelings as successfully as they believed. The truth had been showing itself in small ways for a very long time. And now that truth was impossible to deny. The night was almost over. But the story was not. Because before the next day arrived, your person would make a quiet decision. Not a decision spoken aloud. Not a decision announced to anyone. A decision made entirely within their heart. A decision that would become the turning point of everything. And when that moment finally arrived, they would realize that their brother's words had not changed their feelings. They had only revealed them. What happens next is the biggest revelation yet. And it is much closer than anyone realizes. By the time the first light of morning approached, your person had reached a place they never expected to reach. The night that began with casual conversations had quietly transformed into one of the most important nights of their life. Not because of what happened around them, but because of what happened within them. Some revelations arrive slowly. Some arrive all at once. This one arrived in waves, growing stronger with every passing hour. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The strange thing was that your person's brother probably had no idea how powerful his words had become. To him, they may have seemed like simple observations. But to your person, they unlocked doors that had remained closed for far too long. Every sentence exposed a truth. Every truth revealed another layer. And eventually, all those layers led to one unavoidable realization. The connection was real. Not imagined. Not temporary. Not something created by a single moment. It was real because it remained. It survived distance. It survived uncertainty. It survived silence. And most importantly, it survived time. Your person sat there thinking about all the people they had met, all the conversations they had experienced, all the opportunities life had placed in front of them. Yet despite everything, one person continued appearing in their thoughts more than anyone else. You. That realization stopped them completely. Because suddenly they understood something shocking. The heart does not repeatedly return to what means nothing. The heart returns to what matters. And that understanding changed everything. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As they reflected on the entire night, another memory surfaced. Not a recent memory. An older one. A moment they had nearly forgotten. Yet when it returned, it felt more important than ever. It reminded them of how naturally everything once felt. How easy certain conversations were. How different the energy felt compared to everything that came afterward. And for the first time, instead of pushing that memory away, they allowed themselves to sit with it. They allowed themselves to feel it. They allowed themselves to understand it. That was the moment everything shifted. Because the truth no longer felt uncomfortable. The truth felt clear. Their brother's words had done something remarkable. They had removed confusion. And once confusion disappeared, clarity rushed in. Your person finally stopped fighting against what they already knew. The signs were too obvious. The feelings were too consistent. The connection was too meaningful. And every path of reflection led back to the same conclusion. You still mattered. Far more than they had admitted. Far more than they had allowed themselves to believe. Far more than anyone realized. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Your person smiled. Not because everything was suddenly solved. Not because every question had an answer. But because clarity brings peace. For the first time in a very long time, they were no longer confused about what their heart was trying to say. They understood. And understanding changed everything. The night that began with uncertainty ended with honesty. The night that began with distractions ended with focus. The night that began with casual conversation ended with a realization that would remain long after the sun came up. And as your person looked back on everything their brother had said, one thought stood above all others. Maybe certain people enter your life for a reason. Maybe certain connections are not meant to be forgotten. Maybe the reason your name continued returning was because it was never truly supposed to leave. That thought stayed with them. It followed them into the next day. It followed them into every quiet moment afterward. And it became impossible to ignore. Because now they knew something they didn't know before. Their feelings were not disappearing. They were becoming clearer. And what happens after clarity arrives is the part nobody can predict. Because the next chapter of this story is no longer about realizing the truth. It is about what someone chooses to do once the truth has finally been revealed. And that changes everything. The most fascinating part of this story was not what your person's brother said that night. The most fascinating part was what happened afterward. Words can reveal a truth, but what someone does with that truth is what changes everything. As the new day began, your person carried those revelations with them everywhere they went. They could focus on work. They could focus on conversations. They could focus on responsibilities. Yet somehow, beneath everything else, one thought remained constant. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. For the first time in a very long while, your person stopped resisting their own feelings. They stopped searching for excuses. They stopped convincing themselves that certain thoughts would simply disappear with time. Instead, they chose to be honest with themselves. And honesty can be powerful. Because honesty removes illusions. Honesty removes confusion. Honesty removes unnecessary distance between what someone feels and what someone admits. That was exactly what was happening. Your person was no longer questioning whether the connection mattered. They were questioning why it mattered so much. And the more they searched for that answer, the more surprising the truth became. Every meaningful memory seemed connected to a moment of genuine happiness. Every lasting impression seemed connected to a moment shared with you. Every emotional turning point somehow pointed back to the same place. It was becoming impossible to ignore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then something happened that completely surprised your person. A simple reminder appeared. Not from a conversation. Not from another person. Not from anything dramatic. Just an ordinary reminder of you. Something small. Something most people would overlook. Yet the moment it appeared, your person's entire attention shifted. That is when they realized something extraordinary. No matter how much time passed, certain reminders still carried the same emotional weight. Certain memories still felt alive. Certain thoughts still felt important. And that realization answered a question they had been carrying for a long time. If feelings fade completely, reminders lose their power. But these reminders had not lost their power. Not even close. The connection still mattered. The feeling still mattered. You still mattered. That understanding arrived with remarkable clarity. And once it arrived, it refused to leave. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As the hours passed, your person remembered another sentence their brother had spoken. Not directly. Not word for word. But the meaning behind it. The idea that some people remain important because they were never meant to become ordinary. That thought stayed with them. The more they reflected on it, the more accurate it seemed. Because every attempt to treat the connection as something ordinary had failed. Every attempt to completely move beyond it had failed. Every attempt to convince themselves it meant nothing had failed. The truth kept returning. Again. And again. And again. Until finally there was only one conclusion left. The connection was significant. Not because someone else said so. Because their own heart kept proving it. That realization became the turning point. The moment where uncertainty finally surrendered to understanding. The moment where confusion finally gave way to clarity. The moment where your person stopped running from what they felt. And started accepting it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because late that evening, while reflecting on everything that had happened since that unforgettable night, your person reached a conclusion that changed everything. They realized that their brother had not given them new feelings. Their brother had simply exposed feelings that were already there. Feelings hidden beneath distractions. Feelings buried beneath hesitation. Feelings waiting patiently for the truth to catch up with them. And now the truth had arrived. Fully. Clearly. Powerfully. The story that began with one unexpected sentence was leading toward something much bigger. A realization. A decision. A moment that would shape everything that comes next. And that moment is closer than anyone realizes. There comes a moment in every story when everything that seemed uncertain suddenly begins making sense. Your person had finally reached that moment. Days had passed since that unforgettable night, yet the impact of those words had not faded. If anything, they had grown stronger. The more your person reflected, the more obvious it became that something extraordinary had been unfolding beneath the surface for a very long time. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. What made this realization so powerful was not its suddenness. It was the fact that the truth had been hiding in plain sight all along. Looking back, your person could see it everywhere. In conversations that lingered longer than expected. In memories that refused to disappear. In moments that felt important even when they seemed small at the time. Piece by piece, everything was connecting. Then came a discovery that completely changed their perspective. Your person realized they had spent so much time asking what happened between you that they never stopped to ask why the connection remained so strong. That question changed everything. Because once they started searching for the answer, they found it everywhere. The answer existed in every memory that still felt alive. The answer existed in every thought that continued returning unexpectedly. The answer existed in every moment where your name carried a different weight than anyone else's. And suddenly, what once felt confusing began to feel crystal clear. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your person remembered something their brother had said near the end of the night. At the time it seemed like a simple observation. But now it felt much bigger. He had said, "Some people leave your day, but never leave your story." Those words returned with incredible force. Because they described exactly what your person had been experiencing. No matter what changed around them, something about you remained constant. No matter how much life moved forward, certain feelings remained untouched. No matter how many distractions appeared, the connection continued finding its way back into focus. And that realization carried enormous meaning. Because consistency reveals importance. What lasts often matters more than what arrives loudly and disappears quickly. Your person finally understood that. For the first time, they stopped viewing the connection as something from the past. They started viewing it as something still alive in the present. That shift changed everything. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The more they reflected, the more they noticed another surprising truth. Every time they imagined a future filled with genuine happiness, certain thoughts appeared naturally. Certain hopes appeared naturally. Certain memories appeared naturally. And somehow, you always seemed connected to those thoughts. That realization caught them completely off guard. Because it wasn't forced. It wasn't planned. It simply appeared. And sometimes the most honest answers are the ones that arrive without effort. Your person could no longer ignore what was becoming obvious. The connection had survived because it meant something. It had remained because it mattered. It had endured because it was real. Those truths were no longer difficult to see. They were impossible to miss. And that is when the biggest realization of all finally arrived. The brothers' words had not started this journey. The brothers' words had only pointed toward a truth that already existed. A truth your person had carried quietly for far longer than anyone realized. A truth that had waited patiently for the right moment to be acknowledged. And now that moment had arrived. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because your person was standing at a crossroads. Not a crossroads of confusion. A crossroads of clarity. The answers had appeared. The truth had surfaced. The feelings had revealed themselves. And now only one question remained. What happens when someone finally stops denying what their heart has known all along? That answer is closer than ever. And it changes the entire story. Sometimes the most important revelation does not arrive with noise. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, until suddenly it becomes impossible to ignore. That is exactly where your person found themselves. The night their brother spoke about you was no longer just a memory. It had become a turning point. A moment that divided everything into before and after. Before those words, there was uncertainty. After those words, there was clarity. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your person began noticing something remarkable. The more honest they became with themselves, the calmer they felt. Not because every question had been answered. Not because every outcome was guaranteed. But because truth brings peace. And the truth was becoming impossible to deny. They no longer needed reminders from other people. They no longer needed anyone to explain what they were feeling. They understood it for themselves. That understanding changed everything. Because once someone sees the truth clearly, they can never return to pretending they don't see it. Your person had crossed that line. And there was no going back. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then came one final memory from that unforgettable night. A detail they had overlooked at first. After all the conversations ended, after everyone began leaving, after the laughter faded into silence, their brother had looked at them one last time. Not with judgment. Not with pressure. Just with certainty. And he said something simple. Something that seemed ordinary in the moment. Yet those words would remain unforgettable. He said, "One day you'll realize why you could never stop thinking about them." At the time, your person had brushed it aside. Now those words felt different. Now those words felt prophetic. The most surprising part was that your person no longer felt afraid of that truth. For a long time, they had treated their feelings like a puzzle that needed solving. Now they understood something much deeper. Not every meaningful connection needs to be explained immediately. Some connections reveal their purpose gradually. Some reveal their purpose through time. Some reveal their purpose when the right moment arrives. And for your person, that moment had finally arrived. Everything was beginning to make sense. The memories. The emotions. The reminders. The conversations. Even the words spoken by their brother. All of it pointed toward a truth that had been waiting patiently beneath the surface. A truth that refused to disappear. A truth that kept returning no matter how much time passed. A truth connected to you. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As your person looked toward the future, they noticed something had changed. Their thoughts no longer felt trapped in the past. Instead, they felt hopeful. Curious. Open. Because clarity creates possibilities. And possibilities create movement. The story was no longer about what had already happened. The story was becoming about what could happen next. That realization filled them with a feeling they had not experienced in a very long time. Excitement. Not loud excitement. Not dramatic excitement. Quiet excitement. The kind that appears when someone senses that an important chapter may still be ahead. And that feeling continued growing stronger. Because deep down, your person understood something extraordinary. The night their brother spoke about you was never just a conversation. It was a wake-up call. A moment of truth. A moment of recognition. A moment that forced everything hidden into the light. And once the light arrived, nothing could remain hidden any longer. The final chapter of this story is approaching. The biggest realization is still ahead. And when it arrives, everything will finally come together.